So, welcome back, and hello if you are new. We have at last reached the final 5 of my albums of 2018. Honestly, this list has been such a joy to... well, it's been a joy and a real struggle, to be honest. I think like this year has just had so many good releases for so many different reasons as well, that trying to put, you know, everything into a list of 20 albums has been incredibly difficult. And most importantly, before I get started on this, I just want to say probably the biggest thank you ever to all of you guys. Like anyone who has liked, commented, subscribed, any PRs that I've pitched to, or if you've pitched to me, any reviews I've done, interviews, bands I've met, people I've met at gigs. It's been absolutely amazing, and I really couldn't do this without your support. And it's really quite crazy to think that I'm just literally talking in front of a camera in my living room. Like, for example, working with Metal Sucks, that's an absolutely huge thing, and I am forever grateful to everyone. But I have to say, one does kind of outclass all of you, which is my fiancée. She puts up with a hell of a lot of stuff to do with this channel, and I cannot thank her enough. Without further ado, here we go. These are the 5 albums that really separate the men from the boys, the girls from the women. And they are all pretty much worthy of Album of the Year. Now, YOB, for me, have never been a band that I was really into. I couldn't get into that idea of what doom metal stood for. I thought it was really boring, and I thought that it was just not ever going to be a cup of tea for me. However, when I read up more and more about what the context behind Our Raw Heart was, which, if you're not familiar, Mike Scheidt almost had a very near-death experience, which resulted in this album, which is truly an emotional journey. And I know that sounds very flowery, but it really is. When you listen to the record, there's so much anguish and pain inside there, but with those incredibly unbroken, really weighty, heavy riffs. And I think that there's such a beautiful juxtaposition between this incredibly delicate melody, but then these absolutely mammoth heavy riffs. And you can just feel all of the emotion trickling out of the band. And it really kind of is the album that got me into doom metal this year. And Our Raw Heart is quite simply the most emotional record you will hear this year, without a doubt. And even though it is incredibly long, you know, tracks are like 17 minutes long, it's that beauty of the evolution of the song and this idea of being in a trance-like mantra that really sets Our Raw Heart apart from everything else this year. One of the biggest surprises for me this year was a band called Palm Reader. Now, I wasn't very familiar with them, you know, in the previous years, but I've not stopped listening to their brand new album, Braille. The album really kind of, again, brings this sense of emotion into it, but also has such a different and really interesting way that the band creates songwriting around the album. Braille has a very much ethereal sense to it, and I think that, you know, the band have created an absolute masterpiece that can be just as ferocious as, like, you know, Dillinger Escape Plan, for example, but then just as beautiful as, for example, Deftones. And the band have seen absolutely incredible success this year. They've just been on the up and up and up, supporting Glassjaw, The Contortionist, and then recently performing Braille in its entirety. For me, Braille is, you know, it's that idea of what the UK scene can offer, and with Palm Reader just kind of like scratching the surface now, it'll be incredibly interesting to see what they've got on offer for next year. But on my own, out of these walls I cannot see, drowning alone I cannot breathe, your hands reach. Essentially what Black Peaks have done is they built on all the elements that they put together on Statues, all of the genius songwriting, and made it even better. not only do all the tracks work incredibly well on their own, but as a cohesive package, again, they work really, really fantastically. And I think that all of the sections of the songs complement each other to create this, you know, kind of big tapestry of kind of what the world is like at the moment. You know, the world is a very divided place, particularly in Britain. And I think that this is a perfect album that encapsulates that overall idea, but also pushes the boundaries with what Black Peaks were perceived as and where they can really go for the next year, which is one of the qualities that I think an album of the year really should have. Is if you've seen it on my reviews, then you'll know that I got very, very into Paleozoic, and the idea behind it, behind this idea of eternal recurrence, is just fascinating. And I think it's such a great canvas for the ocean to work with, and there's so much possibility going on. You know, the only competitor against the ocean is the ocean, and for me, Paleozoic has completely outdone everything they've put before it. The idea of electronics really creates this like embryonic state, which I thought was so interesting. They've experimented with guest vocals from Jonas Renkse, and if anything adds so much to that track, Devonian Nascent. And even though this is just part one of a double album, this is an absolute work of art. So I am so excited to see what the part two is going to be. This is what an album of the year does. Where Owls Know My Name is just absolutely sensational, and there's nothing else like it out there, and I really do believe that. There's nothing that combines, you know, Miles Davis style trumpets, that huge electronic crunch midway through on Terrestria 3. There's nothing that combines that Steven Wilson prog element. Saxophone, yeah, maybe it's overdone, but within this context, it works perfectly. And the most important thing for me is that not at any single point does it not sound like Rivers of Nihil. For that reason, it gets, you know, in the album of the year list, but for it to be really at the top is that it is pushing the boundaries of what can be deemed as death metal. And they were already doing this on Monarchy, but Where Owls Know My Name is just another level. I think that Rivers of Nihil are very much those torchbearers in the idea of where prog and where death metal is going to go next. You know, we've got bands the likes of Ne Obliviscaris, Fallujah, which are really kind of pushing the envelope of what can be in death metal and what can be perceived as death metal. And with all of these albums, they play with the ideas of dynamics, of, you know, production and various different layers that you can hear. That brings us to the end of 2018, and with this probably being my final video of the year, again, I just wanted to say thank you so much to everyone. Honestly, the support you guys have given me is really overwhelming, and it's amazing to see that I've made so many friends, you know, just from like people coming up and saying hi at gigs. I'm talking about you, Luigi, Jimmy, so many people, man. Like, it's just been so much fun to hang out with you all, and thank you so much for watching these videos, and most importantly, I will see you guys all in 2019. So I hope you have the most merry of Christmases, eat loads and drink even more. I certainly will. I'm off to Wales to hibernate and go away from every single person I know, and just be with the sheep and the mountains, and my fiance and her family. Thank you so much again, and I'll see you in 2019. Alright, take care guys.